It had been a long day for Emily. The rain earlier that morning had slowed traffic, making her commute miserable, and her manager had piled on extra work before she could even set her bag down. By the time the sun began sinking behind the city skyline, she was exhausted and ready to go home. Her husband, Mark, usually picked her up on Tuesdays, but a sudden project at his construction firm kept him on site until late. "I'm sorry, Em," he said over the phone, his voice apologetic. "I can't make it today. But I called Ryan, he's nearby and can give you a ride home." Ryan, Mark's old friend from college. They had been close for over a decade, and Emily had met him countless times at gatherings and barbecues. He was easygoing, polite, and seemed trustworthy enough. "That's fine," Emily replied. "Tell him I'll be waiting outside the lobby." A few minutes later, she spotted Ryan's familiar silver sedan pulling up to the curb. He rolled down the passenger window with a friendly smile. "Need a lift, he joked, leaning over. Emily laughed lightly, shaking her head as she opened the door. "Thanks, Ryan. You're saving me from a very expensive rideshare bill." The car smelled faintly of coffee and pine air freshener. Emily settled into the passenger seat, buckling up as Ryan pulled away from the curb. "You had a long day?" he asked, glancing at her briefly before focusing back on the road. "The longest," she admitted. "How about you?" "Just the usual work, errands, life," he said with a shrug. The first few minutes of the ride were filled with easy conversation. They talked about the last neighborhood barbecue, Mark's overcooked burgers, and Ryan's latest attempt at gardening, which he admitted had turned into a war against squirrels. But as they turned onto a quieter street, Emily noticed Ryan reach over and press the lock button. The doors clicked shut. It wasn't a loud sound, but in the stillness of the evening, it felt amplified. Emily glanced at him. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," he said casually. "Just a habit. You never know these days, some parts of the city aren't as safe anymore." Emily nodded slowly. It was true, Mark had the same habit of locking the doors automatically when driving through certain areas. Still, something about Ryan's tone felt different. As the streetlights flickered by, Emily realized they weren't taking the usual route to her house. "Ah, Ryan? This isn't the way to my neighborhood." "I know," he said, keeping his eyes on the road. "I just need to talk to you about something. Somewhere a little more private." Emily's grip on her handbag tightened. "Talk to me about what?" He hesitated. "It's about Mark. I didn't want to say anything in front of him, but there's something you need to know." Her heart rate quickened. "Is he okay? Did something happen?" Ryan shook his head. "He's fine. Physically, at least. But I've noticed he's been stressed, and I think I know why. I just don't want this conversation to happen while we're driving through traffic." They drove in silence for a few more minutes until Ryan pulled into the parking lot of a well-lit coffee shop. He parked near the entrance, the warm yellow glow from inside spilling onto the wet pavement. "Come on," he said gently. "I'll buy you a coffee, and we'll talk." Emily reluctantly followed him inside. The shop was quiet, with only a few people working on laptops. They chose a table near the window, and Ryan returned a moment later with 2 steaming mugs. He looked at her with an uneasy expression. "I know this is awkward. But Mark's been dealing with something at work. He didn't tell you because he didn't want you to worry. His company is going through layoffs. He's trying to hold on to his position, but he's been working double shifts to prove himself." Emily's chest tightened. She had noticed Mark's exhaustion lately but had assumed it was just seasonal rush. "Why didn't he tell me?" she murmured. "Because he's Mark," Ryan said with a small smile. "He always tries to protect you. But I think it's weighing on him. I didn't want to see you blindsided if things got worse." Emily stared into her coffee, processing the information. The knot of unease in her stomach slowly shifted, not from fear of Ryan's intentions, but from the sudden understanding of her husband's recent late nights. "Thank you for telling me," she said finally. "I wish he'd been honest, but I guess I understand." Ryan nodded. "He's lucky to have you, Em." They finished their drinks and walked back to the car. This time, Emily didn't flinch when the locks clicked shut. She knew he was simply being cautious. When they finally pulled into her driveway, The porch light was glowing, and Mark was standing outside, clearly tired but smiling. Emily got out of the car and immediately hugged him. "We need to talk," she whispered. Mark looked at her curiously, then over her shoulder at Ryan, who gave him a small nod before driving away. Inside the warmth of their home, Emily told Mark she knew about the layoffs and that she wanted to face whatever came next together. For the first time in weeks, his shoulders seemed to relax. "I should have told you sooner," he said quietly. "It's okay," she replied. "We'll get through it. As long as we're honest with each other." The night ended not with fear, but with a stronger bond between them, proof that sometimes, a locked door doesn't mean danger. It can mean someone is simply trying to keep you safe while delivering a truth you need to hear. If you want, I can also make you a matching thumbnail text plus design concept so it catches attention while still staying safe for monetization. Would you like me to add that now?